That's just the tagline of this video. It was so up, but I liked it. Is anything fun anymore? Can anything be fun? I want this to end. And I don't know what this says about me, but not that part, but I like the book. I liked it. Hello, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton, and today I'm going to be talking about disturbing books. More specifically, the most disturbing books I have ever read. I know the term disturbing when it comes to books, movies, anything is subjective. This is just what I have found to really disturb me in my reading journey over the years. And I will say this, I have a pretty high tolerance for up shit and disturbing. I love horror movies. I love being scared. I love being disturbed. Always on the hunt to find a new horror movie that's going to scare me or disturb me. I don't know. I like it. I put together a list of books that have scared me over the years. Started really getting into reading horror about the last two and a half years. I've always been a massive horror movie person, but actually reading horror is only something that's happened in the last 2.5 years. There's some things in horror that I just can't do. Namely, anything exploitation horror. Like, I can only think of movies right now, but like Last House on the Left or I Spit on Your Grave. That's just like prolonged female assault, and it's prolonged and almost reveled in, and I can't do it. And then there's anything like that's vividly described with animals, animal death, animal abuse, animal neglect. Can you blame me? Can you blame me? Majority of this list is horror or extreme horror, thriller. Please check content warnings. I don't want to be to blame for any type of trauma that you might face when reading any of these texts or looking into these texts. But just know going forward, I enjoyed most of, if not all of these books. And yes, even that one. The first book I'm going to start with is one that I actually just finished recently and is a newbie to this list. It is The Law of the Skies by, I'm not French, so sorry if I mispronounce this, Gregory Courtois. This is translated from French by Mullins Ronda. This is a short little book. It is packed to the brim with just vile, horrible, disgusting imagery. Oh, so gross. Oh, let me back up. What's it about? So this is about a school camping trip with 12 6-year-olds and 3 adults, chaperones, who head out on this weekend camping trip, and none of them make it out alive. First, there are a ton of flaws with this story, with this book. So you really have to suspend your disbelief when you're reading this because some of it's just so absurd. It is one of the most disturbing books I've ever read. Been a comparison or a review comparison that this is Lord of the Flies meets Winnie the Pooh. Definitely don't see the Winnie the Pooh. Lord of the Flies, yes. Lord of the Flies, if it was extreme horror. 128 pages. It wastes absolutely no time, none, with this feeling of dread and feeling of unease. And you're in this POV of some of the 6-year-olds and what they're experiencing and how scared they are and wanting their mom, and like, but they're witnessing all this horrible stuff. The deaths and the kills are like, oh, it's pretty grisly. It is a pretty grisly book. I had heard that from more than one person and they were not kidding. And I'm not kidding when I say it's a very grisly book. If you have any sensitivities with kids meeting horrible ends and it being painstakingly described, probably skip this one. I did enjoy it. There was some parts with the writing and the structure that I really didn't like, but there are some parts that are like really beautifully written. But yeah, it's pretty gross. There's one part at the beginning with some diarrhea that's like so vividly described, and I wish I could Eternal Sunshine it from my brain. Yuck. But I liked it. Not that part, but I liked the book. I liked it. The next book on this list I'm going to talk about, this was actually my first foray into extreme horror. I kind of have a hit and miss relationship with extreme horror. Either I really enjoy it and I'm like, this is sick, this is great, I'm having a good time, this should be a movie, and there's other times I'm just like, I hate being here. I want this to end. So Womb by Duncan Ralston follows a man named Angel who goes to this seedy, shady motel and hires a sex worker named Shyla, really just to tell her his life story and have someone listen to him. You know almost immediately how the story is going to unfold. All the twists, everything. You really have to not be paying attention to what you're reading to not figure it out, because it's so blatantly right in front of you, like how the story is going to play out. That being said, he details basically his entire life story and how he's tied to this one room in particular, mainly detailing the women in his life, all having Shyla ask him questions about it. And again, this is another one on the shorter side. It's about 130 pages. Some of the secrets he has to relieve himself of are just so and the finale especially. I remember telling Luke, I told Luke the entire plot of this and told him the finale, and he was like, wait, why did you read this again? I liked it. It was so up, but I liked it. That's just the tagline of this video. It was so up, but I liked it. It's pretty gross. Yeah, it definitely has an ending. That part I didn't see coming. Of the whole book, this one part I did not see coming. It has an ending that is... I'm surprised. Like, it's so vile that I'm just surprised someone thought of it. So there's that. So that's Bloom. I liked it. I did like it. I'm just putting that out there. I did like it. This book was one of my favorites of last year. Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. Wow. I don't even want to tell you too much about the plot, because I do think going into this as blind as possible will make the story better. If you know, you know. This follows, at the beginning of the book, a young girl named Natsuki who is having a lot of problems at home and at school, and she finds solace in talking to her little stuffed hedgehog who has convinced her he's an emissary from a foreign planet and that she is an alien. Part of the story has to do with her going to their family's summer home, which is in a more rural mountain part of Japan, and playing with her cousin who is also convinced he is an alien. So the first part and the second part of the book are so disturbing, but for completely opposite reasons. So basically, the first part of the book, young Natsuki and like the trauma that she's dealing with, and that trauma just kind of just growing and growing and growing, and her not being equipped to really deal with it. And the second part is the aftermath of that, growing up with all of that knowledge and that trauma and not having dealt with it. This does include cannibalism. I'm just gonna say that. The ending was so unexpected. This little book blew me away. I did not expect how messed up this was going to be, because I read Convenience Store Woman and I thought it was like a fun, kind of sad, quirky little novel. This is still a quirky little novel, but it is very, very sad and also very, very dark. Much as I love this, I have a very hard time recommending it unless they knew going into it a lot of the content warnings, because it just looks like a fun little book. And it sounds like the little blurb on the back just sounds like a fun, quirky little book. Oh boy, it's not. I mean, it is, but it's not. The writing is spectacular. I will pick up anything she writes from now on after reading this. I loved it. Next is probably the one you've probably seen and heard of the most. It's very, very popular, and it's when it was published in the US, and it's still very, very popular. Hinders the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. This is translated from Argentina. Translated from Spanish by Sarah Moses. I bought this when it was released in the US, like a lot of you did. Cover's amazing. This is a dystopian novel where in a not so distant future, animal meat is toxic to humans. There's some type of disease that is released, and it makes animal meat toxic to humans. So the powers that be in the world declare this transition where it's okay to consume human meat, to farm and produce like animal meat, but do that for humans. So there's meat processing, there's heads of instead of cattle, there's heads of human beings, and they are treated from birth until they are butchered like animals. This follows a worker at the local processing plant named Marcos who is dealing with the death of his child. His wife left him, his father has dementia. He's dealing with all these extra stressors, and his boss gifts him a head of a woman. He's very conflicted about this and is having a really hard time treating this grown woman like an animal, and it has a lot of commentary about eating animals and then meat processing in general. The thing that is so disturbing about this, besides what I just said about cannibalism and all that stuff, is that this seems possible. Everyone in this book, besides like a few of the characters, including Marcos, everyone seems so cool with it. Oh, okay, we can't have steak or chicken anymore. All right, let's eat people. All right, no Impossible Burgers here. No plant-based, nothing. Let's just go straight to human beings. It's a really well-written story. It gives a lot to think about. The ending, though, I was shooketh. It's funny, I almost unhauled this because I will warn you, there is one scene, and I guess in the larger context of this story and this book, this kind of seems like a minor detail to harp on about, but it really upset me because, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't disturbing to me in the part of like animal, or like the people eating and like processing and meal preparation. I think I actually was eating food while I was reading some of this book. Sorry. But the one part that really got me, which is a reason I was thinking about unhauling this initially, is there's a part with some puppies, and it's 1 chapter or 2 chapters, and I just had to skip ahead. I couldn't do it because animals are pretty much outlawed now. Like, they carry diseases and killed on sight. And it's just, I was like, nope, not gonna do it. Yeah, just be forewarned, if you are sensitive to that stuff like me, there is one scene in particular that is rather upsetting. In the larger context of this book, it's probably not the most upsetting thing. But I did really enjoy this. I think this is great. To me, probably not the most disturbing book on this list, but it is on this list. It is. Okay, I don't see this book talked about like anywhere, and I really enjoyed it. It came out in 2021. First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. This I heard about on TikTok, actually, on a similar type of list, like most disturbing books I've ever read. And of course, piqued my interest. I'm gonna pick it up and read it. This follows Chrissy, who is 8 years old beginning of the book. Chrissy is a little psychopath. She kills a boy that she knows when she's 8. The book kind of goes back and forth from POV of her as a kid and committing this horrible act that's in very, 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 very detailed act. And then her in adulthood dealing with what she did and being quote unquote famous as this kid killer who's a kid. And just her growing up now that she has a daughter of her own. This was so unsettling for multiple different reasons, because it's not only has Chrissy just had like not the best life, and she's only 8, and she does this horrible thing, and you kind of feel for her as a character, but you know she's like a little not right, and she doesn't feel a lot of guilt necessarily. And childhood Chrissy POV chapters were really unsettling, like what's going on in her head now that she's done this thing, and she thinks these thoughts, and she feels like she has to do this because she just feels like her body feels like she just has to do it. And the adult Chrissy is feeling like someone, her past is catching up to her, and someone is watching her. She has this daughter that she doesn't want to get taken away. It's a really thought-provoking book. I will say this, I didn't love the ending of it, but this did shake me a lot reading it. That's why I do recommend it. I recommend it to a few people because I was like, you have to read this book. Like, I don't think I've read a book like this. I would say The Bad Seed, but even that, like, I feel like a lot of stuff happened behind closed doors, or a lot of stuff happened off camera, because it's a movie too. But like this stuff, you are like in her POV, what she's doing, what she's experienced, how she feels, what she's thinking, what she's seeing in front of her, and it's so compelling to read, even though it makes your stomach drop. Yeah, really like that one. This is probably the lowest rated book on this list, and I don't know why. This is like under 2.97, so I guess it's not great, but it's not too bad, because I loved it. And I don't know what this says about me, but things have gotten worse since we last spoke by Eric LaRocca. I think I've talked about this book in previous vlogs before. It's 120 pages, another novella. I did the audiobook of this, which I do recommend because it just sneaks up on you. I don't know. I really liked it a lot. So But I really like Eric LaRocca a lot. This was just such a gut punch of a book. This is about it's set in the early 90s. This is about an online relationship between two women. It starts off very romantic. They meet in chat room. All of it's over chat. All of it's in instant messenger format, instant messenger dialogue. All these two women finding each other and connecting and like getting excited to talk to each other every day. And then it slowly turns into like sadomasochistic, obsessive type of relationship. And it's all online too. And it just like, it feels so suffocating in some parts. And then the ending is just like, what the hell did I just read? I was so shocked and like I said, gut punched, because I'd never, at the time, again, this is when I started reading more extreme horror, and this is one of the ones I liked, and it's just like, whoa, okay, alright, I'm digging it. Yeah, I liked it. I will probably continue to keep reading Eric LaRocca. I think he's a really talented writer, and I think he writes horror and especially body horror really well, and I think that's not always either written well or like it can sometimes just be more gross. And I'm not saying this book isn't gross, okay? It is gross. It is. Yeah. Nope. Yep. Just thinking about that one part. All right. Yeah. All right. Go on. I liked it. Next book. Looking at my list. Okay. This is probably, no, it is on this entire list. I hate this book. I hate this book. I am shocked it was even published. Tampa by Alyssa Nutting. You may have seen this floating around. It came out, it came out in 2013. Okay. Yeah, it's been around for a while. I hate this book. I hate it so much. This follows a main character, Celeste, who is she's in her mid-20s. She is a middle school teacher. She's happily married, and she is starting at a new school. You find out why she loves her job is because it gives her the chance. I don't know how much I can say this without getting like YouTube like taking this video down or whatever here. And it follows her pretty much obsession with one of her students who's 12. His name's Jack. This was compared to like American Psycho, and I'm just like, no, not even. And it's so disturbing because it's all in her point of view, and she's so meticulous and manipulative, and like she has a routine she has before going to school, and like she has like this playbook on what to say and how to act and what to wear and like how to move her body, her student interested, and it's just, oh, it's so disgusting. To me, it got to the point where it was just, it's so vividly described in detail. It got to the point for me, like, this is just exploitive. Like, this is just, I don't see the point in this book. You can argue, yeah, this shows not all predators are men. They can be, like, beautiful middle school teachers who are female, and it's just like, I think by this point we're aware of this world, that the world sucks, that these people, you know, this can happen no matter, regardless of your gender. But it's just like the lurid detail, it was like slut, and it's just, I hate this book. I hate this book. Looking at like some of the blurbs, dark humor, cracking sexualized prose. I'm like, what the, come on, I don't get it. 5 stars for sheer audacity. Like, yeah, whatever. Sorry, I don't have a lot of good things to say for this book. I think I should just move on. But this was so disturbing. Not in the horror sense, but just in like the up sense. It isn't like, I did not enjoy any part of it. I don't see how you could enjoy it. I kind of hate myself that I read it all the way through. Yeah, definitely one of the most disgusting, disturbing books that I've ever come across. Next, this is another popular little one that I really loved when I read it. I had to stop reading it at night because I was getting scared, and I had to stop reading it at night. And that is Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. This is about a man grappling with some disturbing incidences from his childhood. Some unexplainable stuff that he just wants answers for, and he kind of dives back into his childhood, and each chapter is him reliving and dissecting certain parts of when he lived in this new neighborhood, in this house by these woods. I cannot tell you how claustrophobic this made me feel. It made me feel like someone was watching me. There's a chapter, I think it's called Boxes. And, oh, man. Ah! And then when you find out the reveal of this, oh my god. Like, when you found the reveal of this, it's like, is anything fun anymore? Can anything be fun? Can anything be innocent anymore? It's a slow burn. It is this slow unravel of him figuring out what happened and reconstructing his past. And oh man, it's just like, it gave me like, I was getting so anxious reading this book, and I'd do it again too because I really liked it. Yeah, I recommend this one to a lot of people just because it's very unique. I think this started as like a creepypasta thread or something, or a Reddit thread, and it got turned into a book. I haven't read anything else by him yet. I want to, I just haven't, but I really like this book a lot. I do recommend this a lot. This is another one that's not a horror book per se, but it is one of the most disturbing books I've ever come across. A Mouthful of Air by Amy Koppelman. Oh god, I was depressed for like 2 weeks after I read this book. Yeah, it chronicles this woman named Julie who has a doting husband. She lives in this really nice Upper West Side apartment complex. She doesn't want for anything. And this follows her, the beginning of the book, it follows her like weeks after she attempted on her life, and then her healing journey from that. And she has a brand new baby boy too on top of that. And the book is her really trying to heal and put on a happy face and make it seem like nothing's wrong. Just honestly live a normal life. And it's so painful in so many aspects too, like psychologically. It's almost poetic, like how it's very beautifully written, but it is so brutal. This was written in 2003, I think. Postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis, and it's just so brutal in its description, and I'm sure a lot of women have dealt with it as well as depression and anxiety. Hey, oh man, like the ending, talk about a gut punch, and like an emotional gut punch, because I thought it was going to be different than it ended. This book is just pain. The book is just painful all the way through. It is beautiful. It is thought-provoking. It is a very well done character study, but it is such a painful, disturbing book. I had to read some light fairy fantasy after I read this because it was a lot. This one I read for the first time last year, Naomi's Room by Jonathan Atcliffe. This is baseline a ghost story, but it turns into so much more than that. Holy shit. This is about a married couple, Charles and Laura, and they have a young daughter, Naomi. When Charles and Naomi are out Christmas shopping, Naomi gets separated from him and he loses track of her, can't find her anywhere. This is all within like the first 10 pages of the book. Then she is found brutally murdered. And then the rest of the book is them trying to rebuild their lives in this house that they bought before Naomi disappeared. Charles starts to wonder if Naomi's actually really dead. And it starts to basically become an obsession for him in this house. I personally think in books and in movies, it's really hard to do a ghost story well. There's a few exceptions, like I love Ghost Story by Peter Straub, The Changeling movie. I think those are done really well. So is this. I think this is done really well, and it's really underrated. But, oh man, the last, I want to say quarter of the book threw me for a loop. I was so shocked when I finished this book. I think I just stared at the wall for 10 minutes because it was just, I did not expect that. So terrifying, like so vividly described, playing a picture in my head, and it was not a pretty picture. I'll say that. I will definitely reread this. It might take some time. This is one of my favorite horror books I've ever read for sure. And I think I saw it on like a Reddit post about like best horror, and I was like, oh, I've read this author before. I really liked what I read. It's a little bit over 200 pages. It is it's so good. So good. So disturbing, but so good. This is the only thriller on this list. Again, I think I saw it on a TikTok video and I was like, oh, it's about my library. I'll read it. Still Missing by Chevy Stevens. Now, you might think you've read disturbing thrillers. You might think Pretty Girls is the most disturbing thriller you've ever read. Oh, might I recommend Still Missing by Chevy Stevens? Oh my god, not only is this like a nightmare for me, like one of my worst nightmares, it also has one of the best well-executed twists I have ever read in a book. This is about a woman, Annie, who is a realtor, and she's out showing a house one day by herself and she gets abducted. And it's told from dual perspectives, like the present, and then it details the whole year she was spent captive with a psychopath. The things that this woman went through and that you read is some of the most horrible, heartbreaking, brutal stuff I've ever read, especially in a thriller. Because there's quite a few thrillers that I read where like the twist is like, I saw that coming, or it was like, that's it, that's the twist, and the book's over. This layers in what Annie went through and the present, like how she's dealing with it and healing. Man, the ending. I was like, I beg your pardon? What? I like called my mom afterwards. I was like, you need to read this book immediately. I need to talk to someone about this book. Has anyone read this book? I have to talk about it. Holy shit. But it was really good. It was a really good story. It was a really good book. It was a good ass book. I do want to read more from Chevy Stevens. If you haven't heard of this and you like thrillers and you just like haven't felt like any thriller you've read recently or mystery that you've read recently has done it for you, is like not been like the that you've been wanting, give this a try. Give this a try, maybe. The very last book I'm going to talk about is Come Closer by Sarah Gran. I also read this last year for the first time. It has probably one of my favorite types of horror in it, where it's really similar to Rosemary's Baby, which is one of my favorite horror movies. It's when you're not sure if you're the one going crazy or if there's actually some otherworldly being or force that is haunting you. Very short book. It tracks Amanda, who is a very established architect at this really prestigious firm. She is happily married to a wonderful husband. They have a big house, they have a bunch of friends, all this great stuff. She starts to wonder if she's being possessed by a demon. Slowly shows her change throughout the book. Like these little things, like her just becoming really irritated with her husband or speaking to her boss in a very inappropriate way, and then slowly escalates of her smoking a cigarette and then wanting to put out that cigarette on her husband's bare leg, to hearing noises in the middle of the night and having these urges and dark thoughts and feelings. And it's such a slow descent into madness and her unraveling. Well, it also reminded me the movie Unsane. I had to turn that movie off because it made me too anxious, but another thing is like, you don't know who to trust around you. You don't know if you're actually experiencing what you think you're experiencing or if there's something else at play, something darker, more sinister at play. And I love horror like that. But this was great. The little thing on the back, are you possessed by a demon? And there's a checklist. It's so unnerving and so unsettling. Just being in her head through all 170 pages of being in her head and just experiencing what she's experiencing. It's like, I want to come up for air now. Oh, whew. Yeah, but I love this. This is also one of my favorite horrors that I read last year. But that's it. What's the most disturbing book you've ever read? I would love to know down below. I would like to read it if I haven't already, and maybe update this list in like a year from now, something like that, until I read more disturbing books, because I'm always on the hunt for it. I like reading dark, disturbing, horrific stuff. Have you read any of the books I talked about? Did you enjoy them? Did you hate them? What are your thoughts? And if you can't think of anything else to say, put the... what should I use? Put the devil emoji. The devil emoji down below if you can't think of anything else to say. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. The support means a lot to me. I think in the next few weeks I'm going to get back on that extreme horror horse and try and read some more. And if you have any recommendations, put some down below. That'd be great. But as always, thank you for clicking. Thank you for watching. And I'll have a new video for you soon. Bye! Bye!